All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, paralyzing human emotions, fear. But what if you could do more than just manage it? What if you could actually conquer it completely? Let's get into it. We all know that feeling, right? That cold, tight grip of anxiety, that sudden wave of panic that just stops you in your tracks. But according to one spiritual master, fear isn't a life sentence. It's actually an illusion, and one that we have the power to completely shatter.
See, his whole idea was that fear isn't just some knee-jerk reaction to danger, it's a symptom. It's a massive flashing sign that we fundamentally misunderstood who we are and our real place in the universe.
So in this Explainer, we're breaking down the powerful framework from the 20th century master yogi, Swami Swavananda. We're going to show you not just what fear is, but how his guide lays out a plan to systematically dismantle it right from its very root.
Okay, so you can't conquer an enemy until you understand it, right? So first things first, let's take a look at how this guide actually defines fear.
The guide calls fear bhaya and defines it as a vritti, which is basically a specific thought wave that surges in the mind when we think we're in danger. And, it's not just in our heads. This mental wave kicks off a huge physical response. Our heart starts racing, we might start shaking, it can even cause total paralysis. And this is where Sivananda makes a really crucial distinction. He says there are two kinds of fear. First, there's rational fear, the healthy kind that keeps you from stepping out into traffic. But then there's imaginary fear. And get this, he argues this makes up a staggering 90% of our fears. It's the kind that just drains our energy for no real reason at all. These imaginary fears are what we often call phobias, those really peculiar, irrational anxieties that can just take over. The guide lists a bunch, from claustrophobia, the fear of closed spaces, to even pantophobia, a fear of literally anything and everything. They're not based on actual danger, but on these deep, ingrained mental habits.
So if most of our fears are just phantoms, these ghosts in our minds, where in the world do they come from? Let's peel back another layer.
You know how we tend to blame things outside of ourselves for our fear? A person, a tough situation, what might happen tomorrow? But this guide argues the real source isn't out there at all. It's deep inside our own minds.
And this isn't some new idea. Ancient texts like the Upanishads point to one single profound root cause for all fear, and that's the illusion of duality. So what on earth is duality? Well, it's the fundamental belief that you are a separate, isolated self over here, standing against a vast external other out there. The moment you create that division, you automatically create the possibility of a threat, something out there that can harm the me in here. That separation is the soil where fear grows.
And this leads us directly to fear's inseparable twin, attachment, or what's called raga. The guide explains that you can't have one without the other. They are two sides of the very same coin.
I mean, think about it. Wherever there's attachment, fear is its shadow. You're attached to your body, so you fear getting sick. You're attached to the people you love, so you fear losing them. You're attached to your reputation, so you fear humiliation. The moment you become attached to something, you start living in fear of it being taken away.
Okay, so understanding the cause, that's a huge first step. But the real power in this guide is in the how, the actual actionable methods for taking fear apart. This book is basically a spiritual toolkit, and it's packed with all sorts of techniques. We've gone ahead and distilled them down into 3 fundamental paths you can walk to cultivate courage.
So you've got 3 options. There's the path of the mind, the path of the heart, and the path of pure wisdom. Each one is a totally different approach, but they all lead to the exact same destination: absolute fearlessness. All right, path number 1 is the path of the mind. The method here is called pratipaksha bhavana, which is a fancy way of saying cultivate the opposite. So instead of fighting the darkness of fear, you just switch on the light of courage, using powerful affirmations like this one to completely rewire your mental habits. Number 2 is the path of the heart. This is all about devotion and surrender. For anyone who finds strength and faith, this means placing your trust in a higher power. It's about letting go of the ego's massive burden of trying to control everything. The guide even points to figures like Prahlada, whose incredible faith made him fearless even in the face of death.
And the third, most direct route is the path of wisdom. This one goes straight to the root cause we talked about, duality. Through things like meditation and self-inquiry, you start to realize that your true self, the Atman, is actually one with everything. And if there is no other, as this affirmation says, who is there to be afraid of? So what's the end game here? Where do all these paths ultimately take you?
The final destination isn't just about, coping with fear or managing your anxiety. It's the total and complete annihilation of fear. It's a state known as abhaya, or absolute fearlessness.
This quote from the Upanishads just captures it perfectly. By knowing that ultimate, non-dual reality, which is called Brahman, you don't just feel fearless, you become fearlessness. It becomes your actual nature.
And that brings us to a really profound point. I mean, so much of who we think we are is built around our anxieties, around the walls we put up to protect ourselves from a world we see as the other.
So if that whole structure, that whole architecture of our fear is built on this illusion of being separate, what happens when that illusion just dissolves? This is the final powerful question this guide leaves us to think about. Who would you be without your fears?